The automatic glass doors of the Arclight fashion tower slid open with a hushed whisper, but the silence was quickly swallowed by the sharp clicks of stilettos, the rustle of silk, and the buzz of designer gossip. Models with chiseled cheekbones glided past, heads high, clutching espresso cups and last-minute fittings. It was Fashion Week, and Asha Mehra walked in like a misplaced stitch on a couture gown. Her cotton curdy was freshly ironed, but it stood out like a farmer's shawl in a sea of patent leather. Clutching her plain canvas tote, she paused at the marble reception desk. Behind it, a young man with gelled hair and a nose piercing looked up, visibly annoyed. "Yes," he said, drawing out the word like she was wasting time he didn't have. "I'm here to deliver some samples," Asha said quietly, holding up a small box. Her voice was soft, steady. The receptionist barely looked. "Third floor, left from the elevators, but be quick, no loitering." He went back to typing, probably a scathing tweet about someone's shoes. Asha nodded and made her way to the elevator, adjusting her dupatta as she walked. She passed a woman wearing sunglasses indoors, barking orders into a phone. She passed walls plastered with magazine covers, all glossy and cold. She had seen this world before years ago from the inside, but today she was just the help. As the elevator dinged and opened, Asha stepped in. She glanced at her reflection in the mirrored walls. Her skin, browned by sun and real labor, contrasted starkly against the pale foundations and airbrushed perfection that surrounded her. But her eyes still had that stubborn fire, just hidden for now. On the third floor, chaos reigned. Fabrics flew across tables. Hairdryers roared. Assistants darted around like caffeinated bees. And in the middle of it all stood Mira Kapoor, tall, fierce, and currently scowling at a gown like it had personally offended her. She turned when Asha stepped in. "Who let the delivery woman in here without checking the box?" Mira barked. "We don't have time for street market rejects." There was a pause. Everyone turned. Eyes darted to Asha's modest clothes, her box of samples, her unbranded shoes. Asha opened her mouth. "I was told to." Mira cut her off with a wave. "No, out, I don't care what you were told, we have standards." Laughter rippled through the room. A model whispered something to a stylist and they both giggled. An intern pulled out a phone and subtly recorded. Asha stood still. She didn't lower her eyes, she didn't drop the box. "I think there's been some mistake," she said calmly. "No mistake," Mira snapped. "We're preparing for real clients. If we needed local tailoring, we'd call a boutique in Carol Bagh, not open the doors to whoever walks in." Another laugh, cruel, brittle. And that's when Ria, the assistant designer, stepped forward nervously. "Actually, ma'am, her name is on the schedule. She's submitting design samples for." Mira raised a brow. "For the new talent showcase?" She tilted her head, mock impressed. "Is that what this is?" She walked up to Asha now, slowly, predatory. Her heels clacked on the polished floor with every step. "What's your name again?" "Asha." Mira looked her up and down. "Asha, sweet, you know what gives people false hope? Names like that, but honey, hope won't help you here, especially not dressed like that." Asha didn't flinch. She simply held out the box. Mira didn't take it. "Leave it there," she said, pointing to a side table like she was addressing housekeeping, "and don't expect a call back." Asha placed the box down. Every eye in the room burned into her back. But as she walked out, shoulders straight, she didn't look at any of them. Back in the elevator, she took a breath. The humiliation stung, but it didn't cut like it used to, because this time she wasn't alone. This time she had someone watching. From the corner of the lobby, a young man in a charcoal suit tapped his phone screen and muttered to himself. Manager's name, Mira Kapoor, right? Then he walked out to his car, calmly dialing a number. His voice was cool and sharp. "Set up a meeting, I don't care if it's Fashion Week. Tell them it's Mr. Mehra and make sure she's in the room." Asha sat by the window of her small apartment that evening, watching the city blur into golden dusk. The hum of traffic outside was constant, indifferent, but inside her mind the past played like an old film reel, faded, grainy, yet painfully vivid. There was a time when she wasn't just a woman with a tote bag full of rejected dreams. There was a time when she was the rising star of Indian fashion. It started 10 years ago in a cramped studio in Lajpat Nagar. Asha, fresh out of design school, worked tirelessly with borrowed machines and second-hand fabric. Her designs were raw, but they breathed life, stories sewn into seams, tradition kissed with rebellion. She caught the eye of Rajiv Malhotra, a seasoned designer known more for stealing credit than stitching brilliance. Rajiv saw her talent. More importantly, he saw an opportunity. "You and I," he had said one late night, flipping through her sketchbook, "will take Delhi by storm." Asha, not even hungry, agreed. For a while, it was magic. Asha designed in shadows while Rajiv took center stage. She didn't care, not at first. The dresses bore her soul, even if they carried his label. But the cracks showed: late payments, missed credits, and then the ultimate betrayal. Zara Collection. 22 hand-embroidered pieces, a fusion of Banarasi weaves and modern silhouettes, her most personal work, inspired by her late mother who had spent her life threading saris in the alleyways of Varanasi. It was Asha's dream collection. Rajiv submitted it to the Delhi Fashion Syndicate as his own. She found out when she saw it unveiled on TV, front row celebrities, standing ovation, glowing reviews, all under his name. And in the press conference, when a journalist asked what inspired this collection, Rajiv smiled and said, "My late grandmother, she was a weaver." A complete fabrication. Asha confronted him backstage, furious, broken. "I trusted you," she said, "that was my work." He didn't even look guilty. "You want credit? Start your own brand," he said coldly. "You're talented, sure, but you're also replaceable. Always remember that." She left with nothing. No savings, no network, no reputation. And worst of all, no legal proof. She had signed everything blindly, standard NDAs, copyright waivers masked as partnership forms. She hadn't just lost her work, she had erased her name. The design world forgot her within months. But betrayal has many faces. Her best friend Reina had stood by her during the fallout, or so she thought. They met at Asha's small rented flat weeks later. Asha cried over cold chai, pouring her heart out. And Reina listened, nodded, hugged her. The next month, Reina was hired as Rajiv's new junior designer. "I didn't have a choice," she'd said when confronted. "You're done, Asha, I need to survive." Survival, the word everyone used to justify stepping on her. Back in the present, Asha leaned forward and closed the window. Her fingers touched the box of leftover fabric swatches on the table. It had taken years to save up again. Years to start sketching again without shaking, years to believe that her ideas still mattered. And now she was here, sneered at in the same industry that once whispered about her brilliance. But this time she had something they didn't expect. Her son, Arjun Mehra, wasn't a typical heir. He didn't grow up with wealth, he didn't inherit a mansion, but he inherited her fire. As a boy, he'd seen the tears she hid while working long nights, sewing for boutiques that underpaid her. He'd watched her rework masterpieces into mass-market clothes to afford rent. He knew every wrinkle on her palm wasn't from age, but sacrifice. So when Arjun graduated from Stanford with top marks in business and tech, he didn't join a global firm. He built his own Critter AI, a fashion tech startup using AI to revolutionize design forecasting. Investors laughed at first. Now they begged for meetings. And last year, Critter AI acquired a controlling stake in the Indian Fashion Federation, quietly, under a shell firm. No one connected the dots. Except him. And today, when he watched his mother walk into ArcLight Tower and get humiliated by a woman who didn't even know who she was, that was the last stitch. Asha didn't know yet, she thought her samples would speak for her. But Arjun, he was ready to speak for her. The grand atrium of the Meridian Palace Hotel shimmered like a crystal prism, drenched in light, glass, and couture. Chandeliers glittered overhead while rows of cameras blinked red along the velvet rope. This was the Vogue India Emerging Designers Gala, an event that could make or destroy a designer's future. Asha stood in the farthest corner, gripping the event badge hanging from her neck like a lifeline. Her name was misspelled, Aisha Mehra, and the laminated plastic reeked of indifference. She had submitted her collection under the open showcase category. Technically, anyone could apply, but anyone wasn't supposed to show up wearing old juddies and a self-stitched cotton sari. She felt the stares the moment she walked in, glances that skimmed over her like she was background clutter in a showroom. Nobody said a word, but everything said everything. A model brushed past her and paused, turning back with a smirk. "Staff areas downstairs, auntie." Asha smiled politely. "I'm here for the showcase." The model arched an eyebrow but said nothing. She didn't have to. The judgment was thick enough to touch. As the event wore on, more people arrived: bloggers, influencers, minor celebrities in exaggerated silhouettes and louder opinions. Asha stood patiently near the assigned booth space that still didn't have her designs displayed. Every other designer had a stylist, a PR handler, someone with shiny shoes. She had herself, and a bag of quietly brilliant work no one wanted to see. It was nearing 7 p.m. when she approached the event coordinator, a flustered young woman in a headset. "Excuse me," Asha said gently, "my name is on the list under open category. My booth hasn't been set up." The woman scrolled through a tablet. "Name: Asha Mera MEH." The woman didn't look up. "That's been cancelled." Asha's heart skipped. "Cancelled? No one informed me." The coordinator shrugged, barely apologetic. "One of the sponsors had to expand their space. Yours was bumped. We emailed you." "I never received." "You can watch from the audience if you want," she said, already turning away. Asha stood frozen. She looked around at the laughter, the lights, the shimmering fabric, and then came the voice. "Oh my God," someone said loud enough for half the crowd to hear. "Is that the tailor who tried to pitch designs last month?" Heads turned. Mira Kapoor emerged from the VIP section like a queen descending the steps of a court. She was flanked by 2 stylists and a photographer. Her gown sparkled like vengeance. Her words didn't just cut, they paraded the wound. "I almost didn't recognize her without her little delivery box," Mira continued, raising her glass. "Did you manage to find someone to stitch your dreams this time, Asha?" The group around her laughed. Asha felt the heat crawl up her neck, but she didn't reply. Her silence only fueled the performance. "Oh, don't be shy," Mira said. "You know, I actually liked one of your sketches. My dog wears something similar when it rains." More laughter. Phones came out. Someone started recording. A nearby influencer turned to her camera, whispering, "Okay, wait, this is wild. There's a woman here who literally just got roasted by Mira Kapoor. Like, can she even afford to be here?" Another influencer joined in. "She's probably here for leftovers." Asha's eyes stung, but she refused to blink. She had survived worse. She had buried dreams and raised a child on her own. But humiliation in front of an audience, it was a different kind of pain. It left fingerprints on the soul. "Security," Mira called out dramatically. "I think someone crashed the event. We don't allow outsiders at private showcases." 2 suited guards appeared, confused but compliant. One of them approached Asha with practiced neutrality. "Ma'am, can I see your badge?" She handed it over. He frowned at the printout. "This says open category, but your booth isn't registered on today's floor plan. I'll have to ask you to step outside." "She's harmless," Mira added sweetly. "She just likes pretending to matter." The crowd giggled again. Asha clutched the strap of her bag. She wanted to scream. She wanted to explain, but her voice stayed inside her like a locked box. As the guards gently but firmly walked her toward the exit, murmurs followed her. Whispers about her sari, her age, her gall. The event continued behind her, but something had shifted. Asha stepped out into the marble lobby, breathing in air that didn't smell like perfume and pretense. Her heart ached, her throat burned, but deep within her there was steel. She sat down on a bench and pulled out her phone. She opened her gallery, scrolling to a folder labeled Zara Originals, designs she had digitized, time-stamped, watermarked, encrypted. And then she made one call. It rang twice before the voice answered. "Ma." "Arjun," she said, her voice trembling. "They humiliated me again." There was silence on the other end. Then, "I'm on my way." Asha looked up at the double doors of the ballroom, still glowing with arrogance. They didn't know it yet, but the reckoning had just begun. It was past 9 when the crowd inside the Meridian Palace Hotel began to swell again, this time around the media wall where the evening's keynote speech was about to begin. The announcer's voice echoed through the room, crisp and rehearsed. "We now welcome members of the press, sponsors, and featured designers to gather for a special update from our newest executive stakeholder in the Indian Fashion Federation." The audience murmured with curiosity. No one had heard of any such announcement. Cameras shifted. Influencers straightened their outfits. Mira Kapoor glanced at her PR assistant and whispered, "Another investor flex, probably someone from Dubai trying to buy clout." She didn't even notice the 2 people walking into the room. Asha stepped forward, this time not in juddies, not carrying a tote. She wore a simple black handloom sari with a metallic edge, understated, sharp. Her hair was pinned back. She had applied no makeup, but her eyes, they were brighter than every chandelier in the hall. Walking beside her was a man in a tailored navy suit, face calm, gaze direct. Arjun Mehra was no longer just a tech entrepreneur. Tonight, he entered this space not as a guest, but as an owner. The moment the event host spotted him, a flurry began. Staff whispered. Journalists checked their phones. Suddenly, the presentation screen behind the stage flickered, switching from a rotating gallery of designer logos to a clean white slide. Critter AI Indian Fashion Federation, merger announcement and future of Indian design. Gasped confusion. Mehra's smirk faltered. Arjun stepped onto the small stage with quiet confidence and adjusted the mic. Good evening, he said. My name is Arjun Mehra. I represent Critter AI, a fashion tech firm currently partnered with 12 global design houses and analytics platforms. Earlier this year, Critter acquired a controlling stake in the Indian Fashion Federation. Starting today, all operational oversight, including funding, exhibition approvals, and code of conduct, will be reviewed under our board. A stunned silence fell over the crowd. Arjun continued. Tonight's gala, while beautiful, unfortunately featured a series of irregularities that we intend to review immediately, including the mistreatment of independent applicants, biased allocation of booth space, and reported cases of harassment. Now every eye was on Mehra. Her expression was shifting slowly, precisely from confusion to panic. What is this? She hissed to her assistant. But Arjun wasn't finished. I'd like to call someone up here, someone who represents the kind of design this industry was built on. Someone who was denied a platform not because she lacked talent, but because she didn't play the politics of power. He turned slightly and gestured. Isha stepped forward. Some people gasped, recognition dawning too late. Mehra's jaw clenched. She doesn't belong on this stage, someone blurted from the crowd. She's a fraud. She's been rejected by this industry for years. Isha took the mic. No, she said softly. I was erased by this industry. There's a difference. The room stilled. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a folder. Then she turned to the massive screen behind her. I'd like to share a few things with you. The projection clicked and the first image appeared, a side-by-side comparison of her original Zara collection sketches and Rajiv Malhotra's so-called iconic line from years ago, identical down to the embroidery swirls and sari drape structure. Then emails timestamped her name in the drafts, for review from Isha. Incredible design work, get these into the final list. Then a scanned NDA she was manipulated into signing. Co-collaborative rights buried in the fine print. And finally, a private message one Reina had accidentally sent her years later. You were right, he stole everything. I stayed because I was scared. The whispers turned into uproar. Journalists scribbled notes. The tech assistant cued the next slide, a short video clip, fuzzy but real, of Isha working backstage while Rajiv walked the runway. It was date-stamped a week before the show. It was enough. Mehra snapped, this doesn't prove anything, so what if you stitched a few things? You were hired help, and who even are you to walk back in here and make demands? Isha stepped closer. I'm the woman whose designs built your reputation, she said. I'm the name behind the work you dismissed, the label you tried to erase, and the face you mocked 5 minutes before you realized whose mother I am. Gasps again. Arjun's voice cut in. For the record, Mehra Kapoor, you've been reported for violating FFI's designer ethics clause, verbally abusing an approved applicant, and breaching conduct at a registered event. Your brand's future with this federation is now under review. Someone from the legal team walked in with a printed dossier. Mehra staggered back. You can't do this. You're nobody. You're just her son. That's right, Arjun said, and now your boss. The crowd broke into a low, stunned murmur. A few journalists clapped. A camera flash went off. Someone whispered, that's her son, the critter guy, that's his mother. Mehra opened her mouth, but no words came out. Security quietly approached her. This time they weren't escorting Isha out. As the doors closed behind Mehra, the applause grew louder, a ripple, then a wave. Isha stood tall, still holding the mic. Her voice, steady and full of quiet fire, rang out once more. This industry doesn't just need new designs, it needs a new ethic, and I'm not here to ask for space anymore, I'm here to build it. The lights shifted, reporters surged forward, flashbulbs exploded like stars. Isha Mehra, once forgotten, now stood at the very center of the spotlight. By the next morning, the fashion world was no longer whispering, it was in full meltdown. Headlines splashed across social media and industry platforms. From mockery to mastery, the designer they tried to erase. Critter Eye's executive shocker, a mother's redemption story breaks the runway. But what came next wasn't just emotional, it was forensic. Asha and Arjun arrived at the Federation's central office in Delhi, an austere glass building filled with whispers and coffee-fueled nerves. They weren't alone this time. Two lawyers accompanied them, Arjun's legal counsel and an ex-Federation advisor named Shirin D'Souza, who had once resigned over the very same corruption Asha had suffered. Inside a conference room, members of the Fashion Federation's internal review board gathered. Expressions ranged from blank politeness to guilty discomfort. At the head of the table sat Rajiv Malhotra's former business partner, now chairman of the board, who had no choice but to listen. Shirin began the presentation, clicking through a folder on the overhead screen. "Let's begin with copyright violation," she said calmly. "These are original design blueprints submitted by Ms. Asha Mehra to a contest judged by Rajiv Malhotra in 2018. These were digitally timestamped and stored using secure blockchain record through an early fashion tech archive." A document filled the screen, detailed technical drawings, fabric annotations, even fingerprint-verified signatures. The room was silent. Next came the production photos, Asha working behind the scenes, hand-draping fabric, stitching late into the night while others took credit on the runway. Her quiet presence in the background of dozens of shots, a ghost in her own legacy. Then came the smoking gun, an email leak. Arjun's tech team had used metadata tracing to recover deleted messages from a shared server Rajiv once used. One email, forwarded by a PR assistant, read, "These Mehra sketches are gold. If we label them as a collab, we can pass them off without conflict. She'll never contest. Poor women like her don't hire lawyers." The room froze. Even the chairman coughed uncomfortably. Asha didn't speak, she simply placed a sealed envelope on the table. Inside are certified documents of all correspondence, sketch evolution, and original concepts filed under my name. I never signed over creative rights, not once. The Federation's Ethics Committee chair, an older woman with sharp glasses, opened the file and flipped through the papers. With each turn, the truth grew heavier. Shirin nodded at the next slide. "Furthermore, we have a signed statement from Reena Chopra, former assistant to Rajiv Malhotra, admitting to coercion, data theft, and falsification of submission credits. She's currently under witness protection and willing to testify." Someone gasped. The chairman looked pale now. This is serious." "It's systemic," Arjun said quietly, "and it ends today." More evidence followed. Royalty payments redirected from Asha's name, her collection entered under a dummy label, her designs resold internationally without proper accreditation. Asha had not only been denied fame, she had been robbed blind. One of the board members finally broke the silence. This could destroy Rajiv's entire catalog. "It already has," Arjun replied. "We've frozen his current licensing with 6 overseas partners. Until reparations are made, all future contracts will be reviewed or terminated." The chairman cleared his throat. "So, what are you asking for?" Asha stood. "I don't want pity," she said, "or performative apologies. I want credit. I want ownership of my stolen work returned, royalties paid, and every record that buried me corrected." She looked around the room, her voice steady. "And I want the next woman who walks in without designer heels to be treated with respect, not suspicion." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the ethics chair finally nodded. "Effective immediately, Rajiv Malhotra's membership is suspended pending full investigation. If your documents hold, he will be disqualified from all future Federation events and lose award accreditation retroactively." "And the others involved?" Arjun asked. "We will name them publicly." Asha folded her hands. "That's all I ever wanted." As they stepped out of the building, the sky over Delhi seemed sharper, clearer. Asha blinked into the sunlight and exhaled slowly. "You all right?" Arjun asked, stepping beside her. She nodded. "It's not the victory, it's the validation." Outside, a small group of student designers stood waiting, young women with sketchbooks, hopeful eyes, and hesitant hands. One of them walked up shyly. "Ma'am," she said, "I watched the video of what happened. You're the reason I didn't drop out this week. Thank you." Asha smiled gently, then make sure you never let them tell you where you don't belong. It didn't happen all at once, it never does. Mira Kapoor sat in the polished silence of her glass office, her eyes fixed on the muted television across the room. A news anchor, sleek in a pastel suit, was reading out the headline like it was a death sentence. Designer Mira Kapoor under investigation following Federation scandal, multiple sponsors withdraw. The ticker below was even worse. #boycott MK Designs was trending #1. Her assistant Neha lingered hesitantly by the door, tablet in hand. Ma'am, 6 investors have pulled out. Studio 9, Aurum Lux, and Vibe World have asked for contract terminations. They've also requested public distancing, immediate removal of all partnership branding. Mira didn't blink, she couldn't. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her PR manager's final message. Damage is uncontainable. Crisis plan ineffective. Recommend resignation or indefinite sabbatical. She threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall with a dull crack and shattered. They had turned on her, all of them. Just days ago, she was the queen of this city's fashion elite. She had walked through events like royalty, with every intern bowing under the weight of her name. Now her throne was made of ash and headlines. Screens kept playing clips from the Federation conference. Asha's calm voice, Arjun's quiet precision, the evidence undeniable. Even worse, her own voice recorded at the gala, shrieking insults at Asha. It was everywhere. People had added captions, turned it into a meme. You're nobodies. Only now, everyone knew exactly who the nobody really was. In a private Slack group titled MK Core Team, messages flooded in. Are we still showing at Milan? Please clarify media talking points ASAP. Client refund requests are piling up. Someone leaked our WhatsApp chats. Mira couldn't breathe. The final blow came that afternoon. A legal envelope arrived, hand-delivered. Inside, a cease and desist letter. The Federation had frozen her brand's registration. If proven guilty in the ethics review, she would be blacklisted indefinitely. She turned to the full-length mirror in her office, the same one she used to admire herself in before every runway debut. Now the reflection mocked her. Her eyeliner was smudged, her hair loose. She looked like a woman half unraveled. She sat down heavily, the silence around her no longer elegant, just empty. The phone rang once more. This time she picked it up. Her voice was hoarse. Hello. A pause, then a voice, Rajiv Malhotra's. You too, he asked. Mira closed her eyes. They have everything. I warned you not to push the mother, he muttered. You were sloppy, Arjun's no fool. You're the one who started this whole thing, she hissed. You stole from her first. And you dragged it into the spotlight. Congratulations. The call ended. In a matter of days, Mira Kapoor went from the apex of Indian fashion to a cautionary tale. Designers distanced themselves. Models began quitting her shows. Old allies refused to return calls. Clients demanded refunds. One by one, the glass walls of her empire cracked and collapsed. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, in a co-working studio filled with sunlight and fresh ideas, Asha Mehra stitched the final lining of a new piece, calmly, quietly. While Mira scrambled to salvage her name, Asha no longer had to shout hers. The new studio wasn't in a high-rise or a luxury plaza. It was a repurposed textile mill on the outskirts of the city, sun-drenched, raw, and buzzing with energy. The floor was unfinished concrete, the tables handmade from reclaimed wood, but the air was electric with ambition. And at the heart of it stood Asha Mehra. She wore a simple cotton kurta, hair in a bun, a pencil tucked behind her ear as she examined a swatch of hand-woven silk. Around her, young designers moved like nervous satellites, sketching, stitching, brainstorming. She called them her survivors. Some had been interns in Mira Kapoor's firm, others rejected applicants from prestigious fashion schools. A few were artisans from small towns who had never been inside a formal design institute. Technique can be taught, Asha would say, but vision, that's yours, protect it. The studio didn't have a name yet, but the brand was already making waves, not because of trend, but truth. Asha refused to work with exploitative fabric houses. She partnered instead with women's cooperatives and rural weavers. Her team used AI patterning tools from Critter, AI to reduce fabric waste and increase sustainability. Every piece was tagged with a transparent sourcing card, who made it, where, how long it took. Within weeks, fashion bloggers were calling it India's first ethical couture house. Yet Asha wasn't chasing buzz, she was chasing balance. Arjun visited twice a week, never as a boss, always as a partner. He never hovered, never managed. He simply dropped by, shared ideas, brought coffee, and left a trail of technical improvements behind him. But it was in those quiet moments that Asha felt the weight of how far they'd come. One afternoon, while reviewing mood boards with her new lead intern, an ex-runway assistant named Tara, Asha noticed something. "You used this embroidery from the Budge project?" she asked, tracing a finger along the sketch. Tara nodded. "I saw it in one of your old designs from 2011, thought it deserved a revival." Asha paused. That design had never been shown. It had sat in a rusted drawer for over a decade, forgotten like she had been. But here it was again, breathing. By the time their first preview showcase approached, a modest exhibition in a cultural center, far from the noise of elite malls, Asha insisted that every team member be named on the invite. She didn't want a single star. She wanted a constellation. And the world noticed. Elle India published a feature titled "The Woman Who Wrote Her Own Resurrection." Vogue Digital called her India's quiet revolution. But Asha wasn't looking for applause, she was planting roots. On the evening of the launch, guests arrived expecting a fashion show. Instead, they were given fabric cards, chai, and a seat on hand-woven floor cushions. Lights dimmed. A video played featuring rural artisans from Gujarat and Bengal talking about what it meant to see their work on a global stage. Then the models walked not on a catwalk but through the crowd. No flashy makeup, no music, just the whisper of fabric and the pride of authenticity. Asha watched from a corner, her heart full. She didn't need to be in the spotlight anymore. She was the light. After the show, the crowd rose in unison, not a standing ovation of spectacle, but one of respect. Designers came forward. Influencers asked to collaborate. A few old rivals even approached her, not with rivalry, but humility. And in the back, she saw a figure she hadn't expected, Reina. Nervous, holding a gift wrapped in recycled brown paper, she didn't speak. She just handed it to Asha and said, "I'm sorry I didn't stand up sooner." Asha opened it later. Inside was a photo of her original Zara sketches, framed. Reina had kept them all these years. Asha hung it in the studio the next day. Weeks passed, orders flowed in, not massive ones, but steady, loyal, grounded. Young girls began messaging the studio, asking for internships, saying things like, "I want to learn the way you do it, ma'am, not the glamorous way, the real way." The brand still had no name. Until one morning, during a team breakfast on the studio floor, Tara looked at Asha and said, "We keep trying to think of names that sound powerful, but you know what the most powerful name is now?" Asha raised an eyebrow. "Yours." Everyone agreed. And just like that, House of Asha Mira was born. The room was silent, but it wasn't empty. It was the opening night of the New Delhi Global Fashion Forum, an international summit showcasing the best of design innovation from around the world. The venue shimmered with elegance, crystal chandeliers, mirrored walls, a runway lit like a cathedral aisle. Journalists, diplomats, celebrities, and design critics all sat in perfect rows. But the audience wasn't here for a show. They were here for a speech. A voice echoed through the hall. Presenting this year's Lifetime Contribution Award to Ethical Fashion and Design Reform, Ms. Asha Mehra. The applause began cautiously, then it grew wave after wave until the room stood on its feet. Asha stepped onto the stage wearing a sari of undyed hand-spun cotton. No jewels, no dramatic flair, just grace sewn in silence. She stood behind the podium, letting the clapping settle. Her eyes scanned the crowd and saw faces from every chapter of her story. In the front row, Arjun, proud and steady. Behind him, Tara and the studio interns, dressed in pieces from their debut line. On the side, Federation members, those who had once ignored her voice, now seated in full attention. And just beyond the lights, former friends, old betrayers, even Mira Kapoor herself, watching quietly from the shadows, invited but no longer relevant. Asha began. "A few years ago I was told, quite publicly, that I didn't belong here, that my designs were too simple, my presence too common, and my background too inconvenient." Some in the audience shifted uncomfortably. But here's the truth, simplicity is not a flaw, it's a form of power, and there's nothing more inconvenient to the privileged than a woman who refuses to stay silent. A murmur of approval ran through the crowd. I didn't rise alone. I was lifted by weavers in Bhagalpur, by an assistant brave enough to tell the truth, by a son who reminded me that no one, not even your own doubts, gets to decide when your story ends. She held up the award in one hand, but her other hand remained empty. Then she set the trophy gently on the podium. This doesn't belong to me. It belongs to every woman who's been talked over, mocked, or erased and kept showing up anyway. A pause. To the interns who were told they're not stylish enough, to the rural girls who still sketch dresses on the back of ration receipts, to anyone whose name was deleted from the credits. She smiled. You are not invisible, you are just early. The room erupted. It wasn't just applause this time, it was validation. It was years of silence breaking into sound. Tears shimmered in eyes across the hall, seasoned designers and first-time interns alike. Backstage, as Asha stepped down from the lights, a group of young journalists rushed to her. Ma'am, what's next for House of Asha Mehra? She didn't answer right away. She turned to look at Arjun, who was waiting with a water bottle and a crooked smile. We go quieter, she said at last. We grow stronger and we teach. Later that night, a small after-party was held on the rooftop of the venue, not a champagne-soaked bash, but a dinner under fairy lights, surrounded by planters and hand-painted lanterns. Asha sat with her team, passing bowls of biryani and laughing over bad runway walk impressions. No velvet ropes, no hierarchies, just community. Midway through the evening, an old mentor approached her, a woman who had once dismissed Asha's ideas in front of a boardroom. She looked hesitant. I just wanted to say, I misjudged you. Asha didn't respond with bitterness, she simply nodded. A lot of people did. The woman exhaled. You built something extraordinary. No, Asha said gently, we did, all the ones who were overlooked. We didn't rise despite what happened, we rose because of it. Across the city, the same publications that once ignored her now ran her face on every cover. The simple woman who redefined the system. Asha Mehra, not a comeback, a correction. But Asha wasn't concerned with headlines anymore. The next morning, she was back at the studio, kneeling beside an intern, adjusting the hem of a new garment. Her hands were steady, her voice soft. When someone asked why she still worked like an apprentice, she said, because this is where it begins, again and again, and if I don't kneel here, how will they ever know it's okay to rise?